Oh my God. Can you hear the person above me? They are so loud. I'm sorry if this is like distracting at all because that's all I hear. It's like they have elephant feet. Welcome back to Ben Keenan Just Can't Stop Talking, the water cooler episode, aka the 10-ish minute news and culture show where you hear about literally everything that happened today so that you're a little bit smarter about a lot of things. It is Thursday, February 20th, aka Baby Friday. We are almost there. We've clocked off for the day. You're listening to this and there's only one more day of the week left of the longest week this year. Some would argue. I don't know how 4-day weeks are always the longest, but this one feels like it's literally 10 days. You know the drill by now. We are going to talk about everything that happened last night, rolling in through everything that happened today to make sure that you are caught up on all of the news in 10-ish minutes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the things that happened overnight. At 5:16 p.m., Trump's new Secretary of Commerce alluded to $1 trillion worth of cuts from Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare during an interview with Fox News last night. Take a listen.
Well, when I set up Doge with Elon, so back in October, Elon Musk and I flew down to Texas, got Elon Musk to do it. And here was our agreement that Elon was going to cut $1 trillion of waste, fraud, and abuse. Think about it. We have almost $4 trillion of entitlements, and no one's ever looked at it before. You know Social Security is wrong. You know Medicaid and Medicare are wrong. So he's going to cut $1 trillion, and then we're going to get rid of all these tax scams that hammer against America, and we're going to raise $1 trillion of revenue. And our objective under Donald Trump is to balance this budget. And I'm telling you, you watch it, we're going to do it.
At 6:55 p.m., Trump floated the idea that he wanted the federal government to run DC. And if you wanted some insight into what his thinking is here, because it's truly always about him, he said, quote, "It's a sad thing. Homeless people all over the place. We've got to take care of the homeless, but we can't have them in Washington, D.C. when they come in to see me, like Macron is coming, the Prime Minister of the UK is coming, all these people coming over to see me. We'll have ultimately President Xi. We'll have everybody. You can't let that happen. You can't just have tents all over your once magnificent house and lawns. You just can't do it." He really does see himself as some doting housewife from the 50s, doesn't he? Where his husband's boss is coming over to be impressed by the wife. But in this case, the husband is Putin and somehow the boss is also Putin. At 7:20 p.m., Donald Trump's appeal to his court loss on the ban on birthright citizenship was rejected by an appeals court, meaning we're probably going to end up seeing this at the Supreme Court, which we figured was going to happen anyway, but this is just another step in the process. Now, on to the news for today. Starting at 2:15 a.m., the song Water by Tyla, you know the one, there's like, make me sweat, make me hotter, make me lose my breath, make me water. And she's like itty bitty tiny and shaking her booty. Anyway, that song became the first solo song by an African artist to reach 1 billion streams on Spotify. At 4:28 a.m., David Boren, who is the former Oklahoma governor and U.S. senator, died at 83 years old. At 6:28 a.m., Mississippi's 77-year-old lieutenant governor, Delbert Hosemann, collapsed mid-speech. It's kind of crazy. He says he's feeling fine now, but just take a look at this video.
These are multi-year payouts. Each of these has several more.
Delbert.
Senator Johnson for a motion to recess. So moved. All in favor say aye. No.
At 7 a.m., 3 people being investigated for the death of former One Direction star Liam Payne, including his friend Roger Nors and 2 workers at the hotel that he died at, had their charges fully dropped, a panel of judges from Argentina's Court of Appeals announced in an extensive ruling. At 7:48 a.m., ex-Spanish soccer president Luis Rubiales has been found guilty of sexual assault via his forcible kissing of the star player Jenny Hermoso at the World Cup finals. At 8 a.m., an Idaho judge declined to throw out genetic evidence in the University of Idaho killings, saying that the method wasn't unconstitutional as was being argued by Brian Kohberger's defense attorney. So Brian Kohberger is the one who they think did all the killings of those 4 students at the University of Idaho. And there was some sort of like genetic evidence where they could go back and like reverse engineer it to see who was all there. And the defense attorney was saying that that is unconstitutional and like an invasion of his rights. So the judge said, no, it's not, which I mean, like, if you're a murderer, ultimately a murderer, you don't have a whole lot of rights in terms of how we find that out. My opinion. I cannot be sued for my opinion. Speaking of lawsuits, at 8:03 a.m., a Beverly Hills plastic surgeon has been sued for not telling patients that a hacker stole all their nude photos. And in additional lawsuit news, at 8:06 a.m., Diddy's lawyers have filed a new motion looking to dismiss one of his charges, saying that, quote, no white person has ever been the target of remotely similar prosecution. The charge, you may ask? Preventing trafficking across state lines for prostitution services. And then, once again, in more lawsuit news at 8:07 a.m., lots of early morning lawsuit stuff. New York Attorney General Letitia James announced that she is suing the nation's largest vape distributors for getting kids hooked on nicotine and fueling a nationwide youth vaping crisis. Period. At 8:15 a.m., 83-year-old Kentucky Republican Senator, former Senate Majority Leader, and the longest-serving Senate Party Leader in history, Mitch McConnell, announced that he is not seeking re-election in 2026, opening a seat that he has held in Kentucky since 1984. And before you ask, Kentucky Democratic Governor Andy Beshear has already ruled out running for this seat, saying last year, quote, I'm completely and totally ruling out a run for any open seat in 2026. I'm going to keep doing this job every day for this 4-year term I was elected to. So you can keep an eye out for him running to be on the Democratic presidential ticket come 2028. At 8:30 a.m., Amazon MGM has officially taken creative control of the James Bond franchise, ending an era of family control of the vibes of James Bond. At 8:35 a.m., Elon Musk announced that he's changing how Twitter's community notes feature works after finding out that it's producing fact checks that correct Russian propaganda. So basically, he is now giving you, quote, facts that he agrees with, whether or not they are actually factually correct or not. At 9:43 a.m., Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, yes, the Sean Duffy that was on Fox News, and also, yes, the Sean Duffy that was on The Real World, and other California Republicans announced a review of the spending for the high-speed rail project that was happening in California, a project that created 14,000 good-paying jobs in the state. As you can imagine, this announcement was promptly booed. Take a listen.
$1 billion, and no rail has been built. So if you want to go protest somewhere, if you want to shout at someone, go to the governor's mansion. Go talk to Democrats in the legislature who have brought us this crappy project, right? So we've seen over the course of the last month what DOGE has exposed with regard to fraud, waste, and abuse. And we're done with it. And you know what? You're going to have people who love fraud, who love waste, who love trains to nowhere. But all of us up here, we do not love fraud, waste, and abuse. We are going to use the taxpayer money efficiently and effectively, and this is a boondoggle. There is, and again, I would love if they build a rail. It was supposed to be done in 2020.
At 9:50 a.m., YouTube announced their plans to introduce a new, cheaper premium tier in the US that will make podcasts and other videos, with the exception of music videos, ad-free. This feels like a good time to remind you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. New subscriptions, likes, comments, etc. Those all help the algorithm push my channel further to more folks who don't know about me and what we're doing over here. We being you, also, you're part of this. And this is just going to help us as we continue our mission of taking over the world. And yeah, you got it on the ground floor of this taking over the world idea. At 10 a.m., San Antonio Spurs player Victor Wembanyama is expected to miss the remainder of the season after a deep vein thrombosis in his right shoulder. That's a blood clot. For those of you who don't know medicine, like me, I did have to look that up. 11:17 a.m., Rico Nasty has announced a new album, Lethal, coming out on May 16th. At 11:20 a.m., Lil Nas X announced a new single, Hotbox, which will drop next month. At 11:24 a.m., Love is Blind's Amber Desiree, I don't know how you say her last name, from season 6, which I think was the North Carolina season, is launching a new podcast. It's all about love, culture, and reality TV, I guess. At 11:26 a.m., Donald Trump's FBI director nominee, Kash Patel, has been confirmed by the Senate, 51-49, with Republicans Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine voting no. And yes, this is bad. He is the guy that published a book that included an enemies list, so just make sure to keep an eye out for the arrests of Democrats or journalists or Republicans that have spoken out against Trump in the past. Liz Cheney. I mean, the man's a nut. Just listen to this.
And then personnel, is policy. And not just at the principal level. You got to go down 2, 3, 4 levels down. The undersecretaries, the assistant secretaries, the deputies, the chiefs of staff. They all have to be people who agree with the commander-in-chief and don't believe that they can overcome a commander-in-chief just because they think they are saving America. That's not how the chain of command works. It didn't work like that when you were in the Navy, and it hasn't changed. And so we need to implement personnel across the board that follows the commander-in-chief's process and policies. And that's the democratic process. And anyone violating that should be thrown out of government and maybe even put in jail.
At 12:05 p.m., the Trump administration announced that they are ending Medicare coverage for most telehealth services on April 1st. At 12:22 p.m., Netflix announced that they are planning to spend $1 billion making content in Mexico over the next 4 years, with the money going towards projects like the movie Roma, which went on to earn international acclaim. This is good. We need more content that is created outside of the United States. At 12:56 p.m., do we have any Ugly Betty fans here? I hope so, because Ugly Betty actor Eric Mabius, yes, that is Daniel Meade, and yes, I'm in the middle of my annual rewatch, so this literally piqued my interest. He was arrested in Florida on battery charges. I would bet my life savings that Wilhelmina Slater had something to do with this. At 3:12 p.m., Love Island All-Stars, the UK one, has received over 2,000 complaints from fans for bullying after the season 2 finale aired. LMAO. The Brits do not fuck around with Love Island. At 4 p.m., Selena Gomez released her new single, Call Me When You Break Up, featuring Gracie Abrams and Benny Blanco. I listened. It's good. I did add it to my February playlist. My only question is why so far 2 out of 2 songs are both under 2 minutes? Like, can Benny Blanco not produce something longer than that? Or does Selena just be like, I'm trying to give you a 6-word bop on TikTok, period, end of. I'm going to need some old school Selena Gomez length music that we can play in the club this summer. I'm just saying that better be on this damn album. And that is all the news of today. That's everything that happened. If you cannot wait for more news to come out tomorrow, you can always find me on social media. I am on TikTok and YouTube at I've Been Traveling. I am on Instagram and Threads at Ben Keenan, or per usual, you can always find me here on the podcast, Ben Keenan Just Can't Stop Talking, at Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Please don't forget to subscribe, follow, like, comment, do whatever. I want this to continue to grow so I can do this more frequently and give you more content that you can consume. All right, that's all. We'll talk tomorrow where more news happens. Until then, have a good night. Bye.